So there I was in the YouTube chat of one Cashew1405, whereupon I expressed my enjoyment of the Min Min lighter. And what was the reaction of this so-called The Pre-Sequel guy? Borderline disgust, refused to defend the Min Min lighter, so I'll show him. I'm twice the Pre-Sequel guy he is. That interaction was in the VOD for his bingo match against Lilgasm Ask. Somewhere. I guess you'll have to watch the whole VOD to find it. Anyway, I really like the Min Min lighter. I'm using it here with the slapdash build so you can get a good taste for it when it's just inserted into whatever other build you might have going. But for challenge runs, I can't take certain skills, so my build is limited. Basically, I can only take a skill if it boosts a number on the item card. No bonus damage types, no bonus weapon effects. I'll have a list of all the skills that it excludes in the description. I'll also have a link to Cashew1405's channel and some info on the point system I use for challenge runs. Speaking of gear, I have a placeholder class mod that isn't giving me any bonuses at all, an Oz kit that's purely for survivability, and the Shield of Ages. The Shield of Ages wasn't as much of a help as you might think. It made a lot of general mobbing easier, but didn't matter on the hard parts. We'll get to that. I don't want you to be fooled by the amount of damage this thing does here. All these enemies have much lower health than basic scavs. So there's really no point in showing the combat. It's not like I died, so let's move on. Move on to these turrets, because by golly they took a lot longer to kill than normal. It's a bit hard to show the damage on the health bar sometimes, since shooting past enemies is often most effective, but trust me, this isn't much damage. And now we move on to Flame Lurker. I'm sure that connection lost thing is fine. It wasn't fine. Now that we're fighting a boss, I can talk about a rule with this weapon specifically. No chucking. Minnie ain't a chucker, she's a shooter. Minnie is also best suited for mobbing rather than bossing, so most bosses are just gonna be a problem for us. That's just how it's gonna be. When the reinforcements came and I was able to get kill skills, the damage picked up for sure. I think this is the best burst I got, which is really not that great by the way. I was also using Showdown constantly just for the bonus damage, and it still took a hot 2.5 minutes just to get him out of his power suit. Once he was out, he wasn't hard at all. Something satisfying about using the lighter is having a lot of projectiles out at once, which you need a high fire rate for since they only last 6 seconds. But having all those balls out and seeing all those ticks on the health bar is satisfying, even if it's not really a lot of damage. Anyway, I killed Dark Lurker and didn't die at all. Even got a good luck nukem. Then a bunch of waiting happened and now I'm fighting Kragans. The small ones die fast and the big ones die slightly less fast. And the biggest ones die way less fast, yowza. Timeout, hold on. Killing just the biggest Kragan in that Matryoshka took longer than the entirety of the Firebelly fight. And then I had to kill all the smaller ones. Well, I didn't have to. I could have ran past, but I wanted to. This gun is fun. And we arrive back here. Even with a build that's not even close to as good as the one before, this gun is still a lot of fun against these guys. Again, it's hard to show the damage on the health bars, I apologize for that. Not that it matters too much since the appeal of this weapon is its ability to spread its damage evenly-ish across a group rather than single target damage. Because I'm not sure there's a limit to how many enemies one ball can zap at once. And it has a deceptively large hitbox, so you can really get it jammed between two objects while it goes to town on a bad guy, as you can see here. Ideal scenario. Of course the damage isn't ideal, but it's not terrible. It was around this point I started going down a lot. Having more damage would have helped, but being better at gaming would have helped more. One of my favorite things about the lighter is that its balls still shock people while you're entering fight for your life, which means it's almost likely to get a second wind before you can even shoot something. The downside is that going down and getting right back up often shortens your fight for your life timer, which is what caused the first death of the run. I'll have a tally at the end, but I don't really care much about how many deaths happen during a run. It's a fun metric to have, but I don't think it's that useful if I'm honest. I'll still point some of them out, I just think the why is more important than the how many. But the damage I'm doing against scavs is pretty nice, at least early game where there are no uber muggers. Oh right. Deadlift was pretty annoying, because a big part of being able to deal a lot of damage with the lighter is the enemy or enemies being relatively stationary or plentiful. Deadlift is neither. Another thing Deadlift isn't, even though he arguably should be, is weak to shock. That's very fortunate for us. Another fortunate thing is, as you may have just seen, the lighter's balls attack Deadlift's balls, so I'm relatively protected from those. Hard to get that on camera, easy to stunlock Deadlift with slams so he stays in place for me to do lots of damage to him. You might be thinking, those slams are doing damage, maybe that invalidates the run. And I agree actually, but the lighter was doing so much more. But after this I did plan to use Gibbed to change my kit to level 1, which I forgot to do. The entire run. Oopsies. Took 2 minutes 18 seconds to knock his shields down. And only a minute after that he was dead. Were I not able to stunlock him, this fight would have taken a lot longer and been much more annoying. I didn't die at all getting the Moonzumi, and you've seen how scavs work, you don't need to see more scavs right now. These jumps get a lot of hate, and let me tell you, I just don't get it. I've never failed one of these even once. Concordia sure was Concordia, but that leads us right into the Darksiders, which were fun. This part especially since it's nice and enclosed. However, even with kill skills up and in a nice enclosed area, our damage against magma rivers is a tad sluggish, which almost caused me to die. Almost. Going down and not getting right back up is generally cause for concern when using this weapon. As Nisha anyway. Which reminds me, even if I had an excellent build for this gun and was using it in an optimal scenario, Nisha wouldn't be the best user of the Min later. That would most likely be Athena, since she can boost the fire rate higher and reduce the ammo consumption quite a lot, and has more damage since this thing is shock locked. Nisha is still really good with it, but keep in mind that Athena would be better. Oh look, Darksiders are dead. Then we gotta fight more scavs, which you've already seen and I'll show more of later. But more importantly, we've got a bit of an obstacle here. An obstacle I could and probably should have ran past. Not only is this an Uber Mugger, one always spawns here during the mission, but it's an Uber Mugger with a cryo rocket launcher. As you could see there, I was trying to hide behind cover while shooting out the door, but the lighter's wide-ass projectile hitbox made that a little difficult. I can still hit the Mugger from behind cover, but that doesn't help me much at all. Needless to say, I didn't succeed on my first attempt. Cryo doesn't even help me much in terms of damage since I can't get crits. Thankfully, the launcher he has a very slow projectile speed, so if I'm lucky, I can dodge it. Also, thankfully, the lighter's orbs will zap the rockets entirely, which was really cool to discover actually. Unfortunately, none of that really helped at all and I died 5 times to this one enemy. I did kill him eventually though by keeping my distance and not falling for the trap of spamming double jumps, using them instead to change direction mid-air when needed. Keeping distance also gave the orbs more chances to pop a rocket, which they didn't always do since they zap I think once a second-ish. 2 minutes 21 seconds to kill this guy with no kill skills around, and I almost died numerous times. I will be running past this one. You might assume all that would make Redbelly, an even tankier version of Deadlift, who's a mildly tanky version of an Uber Mugger, hard. But no, Redbelly was actually less annoying than usual. You see, a lot of what makes phase 1 of this fight annoying or difficult is the bullet reflection. We aren't shooting bullets, there's nothing to reflect. Which means I'm free to use Showdown to my heart's content. As long as I'm careful to keep my distance, I'm fine until mobs start spawning. This is one of those fights where I could tell the Shield of Ages was helping me a lot. Belly usually spawns with a fire laser and, you might not know this, fire is weak against shields. And when my shields got a little low, I'd just pop Showdown and get those bad boys right back up. And when I get caught with my shields down but no Showdown to save me, I could hang back a bit and be fine. That's a titty or a splitter he's got, and that thing's got no range. The mobs in the arena complicate matters though. I can get kill skills now, yes, but it's a lot harder to control the situation now. Luckily it's only little guys that spawn, so they don't have a lot of health, but they do have a lot of damage, especially if they have a shock laser, which isn't uncommon. And another unfortunate dude is getting Redbelly to split doesn't really help all that much. Crits would be available if I could crit, but I can't, so now there's just more enemies to deal with. And Belly can do that massive launch now, which is scary and drains my shields immediately if it hits, leaving me vulnerable to the multitude of lasery enemies around. And it is because of that I died. But they stay split, so progress was made on that first attempt, and I can still handle Belly pretty well as long as I keep my distance and try to keep all the little gremlins grouped up when they spawn. I did go down a bit, but like I said earlier, the balls still shock when you're going down, so I was able to get second wins on the little guys. And I was able to keep pretty decent damage on Belly when he was out in the outer circle since the orbs bounce off the wall and keep hitting him. So I was able to kill Belly pretty good. The real shocker with this fight is I was not able to kill Red as good. He's such a teeny tiny target that moves around quite a lot, which isn't what you want when you're using the Min lighter. But he's also not super dangerous, so I wasn't worried about it. This fight was 4 minutes and just about half of that was jumping around trying to shoot Red with these slow ass orbs. Sometimes he gets stuck next to a wall, but I didn't want to cheese him if I didn't have to, and I didn't, so I didn't. Quick special mention of this fight here, very enclosed area, it was pretty satisfying. The lighter really can kill basic mobs pretty quickly with this build in situations like this where all the orbs zap all the enemies all the time. The badasses are a bit slower, but whatever, who cares, Min lighter best gun. It's around this part of the story where the combat takes a back seat while I blast through a bunch of mission objectives you don't really need to see. There is this part here where another Uber Mugger spawns, but you bet your bottom dollar I ran right past all of that. I also ran past this Kraken that spawns. I already did that, I don't want to do it again. I was really excited for this specific room of this specific map, because it's so enclosed and a lot of enemies spawn in here, so it's another ideal scenario for the lighter. And everything was going really well and I was having a lot of fun until another Uber Mugger crashed the party. I quickly got downed, but there are actually second wins around this time, so I was able to get back up. But more importantly than second wins, there are kill skills this time, so theoretically this Uber Mugger would have been much easier to deal with. The area was also nicely enclosed, and there's more cover around, and he doesn't have a rocket launcher. But I ran out of kill skills and he did have a corrosive laser, so I still went down and died. Twice actually, but that second attempt was still a success, thanks to those lovely orbs continuing to damage that Mugger after I died. Here's another death that was caused by a fast bleed out timer, and look at that, another Uber Mugger. I gotta learn to just run past these guys if possible. But no, instead I gotta spend a minute and a half running around shooting at a guy who gets this close to killing me every few seconds. Oh hey, I killed him though. I mean, obviously I killed him. The Midman lighter is great. I was worried the lighter's orbs wouldn't be able to target that flow regulator, but luckily it did. I'm sure the orbs not targeting something won't be a problem in the future. Have you heard of the concept of foreshadow? So anyway, another Ubermugger spawns here. There are so many Ubermugger spawns in this part of the story, it's wild. And they're the hardest non-boss enemy in the entire game. Oh lovely, that one has a rocket launcher with a super ultra fast rocket speed that I can't dodge easily and the lighter orbs won't be able to zap into the sky. Fabulous. And did you see that? The orbs hitting that railing instead of going past it because the orb hitbox is big? Isn't that just great? And now I'm being spawn camped. That's cool. Screw that, we're at the Bosun now. Now after getting those shield generators out of the way, which took longer than I'd like to admit, this fight was actually really easy. Honestly, the hard part was the shield generators since they don't stack unchained for some reason. I do pretty decent damage to the Bosun, but since he moves around so much, it's really hard for the shock balls to hit him. Which leads to this fight being much more tedious than I'd have liked. And now that his shields are gone, my damage dropped off a cliff. Thanks to the Shield of Ages though, I'm not in nearly as much danger as I could be. My strategy, if you could call it that, was to dance around near the entrance to his arena. This let most-ish of the orbs hit him with pretty decent consistency. I mean, if you boil it down enough, my real strategy in every fight is to fill the arena with balls until the boss dies. Which did eventually happen after 6 whole minutes. I could try to make this more interesting to talk about, but I already did that before when I talked about how much I love his arena design. This map is really just a lot of mobbing, so I'll use this opportunity to ask, nay, dare you to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, you dummy. While you're at it, leave a comment about how much you love this weapon. All other comments will be deleted. I'm gonna be coming back to this map later, but for now just know, more Ubermuggers spawn here. Also, that's a pretty good demonstration of the fact that this thing really takes a minute to build up damage. Just having kill skills up really does a lot to help this thing out. Anyway, yes, the Ubermugger spawned, and yes, I died. But the problem we have this time is you have to kill this guy to proceed. But I have a secret junkler's trick up my sleeves. It's called running around the pole while I shoot Midman balls past the pole so they can hit the mugger so I can stay out of range of scary lasers that shoot me. That was a 2.5 minute long process. Easiest mugger ever. And after that, there's no more mandatory mugger murder, so we're free to frolic forth. The security bots weren't that tough, especially since there are so many enemies around for me to get kill skills off of. Midman lighter is strange because the more enemies there are, the better it is. See what I mean? Anyway, like I said before, there are no more mandatory Ubermugger fights, so we're moving right along down to the boss. If you thought the Bosun fight, which you didn't see all of, was kinda long and boring, trust me bucko, you ain't seen nothing yet. 7 entire minutes of slowly ticking this health bar down. It wasn't hard, I wasn't in any real danger, but it was a long fight. My damage was pretty not great for sure, but it should also be said that Felicity has a very large health bar. It should also be said that the protective dome does literally nothing. The orbs zap right through that thing. But yeah, 7 minute long fight, and this was the only time my shield broke and the only time I went down. And there was basically a free second wind right there. Not what I would call a hard boss at all. She just took forever, and there wasn't anything interesting to say about the fight. Other than the reflector shield bypass thingy whatever. Orb go through shield. You might expect the difficulty of this game to increase at this point, but in reality it kinda drops off a cliff. Most of these Legion guys are pretty wimpy. The badasses aren't bad, the power suits aren't bad, nothing about these Legion guys is that bad. The ones that cloak won't be targeted by the lighter's orbs, but they uncloak before they attack and the orbs zap their shield away pretty quick, which makes them not able to cloak anymore. None of that stops me from going down at the wrong moment and not being able to get a revive though. That probably won't happen too often. Let's get to killing all those mobs, shall we? As you can see, weak like shortbread. I've had slower mobbing at Jack's door with good guns. It's almost like a lack of Ubermuggers made this game significantly easier. That's cool. You might think since the lighter's orbs don't attack cloaked enemies, the stalkers will be a problem. But they all uncloak to attack and the lighter is shocked so their shields don't last long. So no problem. Even the damage on rabbits is pretty okay. Nothing can harm me. I'm basically invincible. Which is reflected by the fact that I barely even went down, much less died in R&D. And I will admit the badasses can be a tad tanky when I don't have kill skills, but not awful considering my build. And then that's the end of R&D. Hooray! To celebrate, I will press this party activation button. That's good, I think that's good. I turned dialogue off, so I don't know what the characters are talking about. Probably congratulating me. Yeah, see? Rewarding me for my success. Do you guys think that Jack experimented with the infection that caused the boils to create rats on purpose, or is it just a reskin and a different context? Do you guys think we'd be able to slice off the boils from this boil and eat them and make boil meat a renewable food resource in Borderlands? Where does the food come from in this universe? Do you guys think it would be weird if I asked you to like and subscribe a second time? Like, once is pretty normal, right? But twice? I'm not sure about that. This video is already long, maybe it'd be a waste of time. This video is pretty long. Do you guys think it's maybe too long? Like I could have not shown some bits? I'm not going to change anything, even though I totally could. I'm just wondering if there's superfluous segments. Wait, do you guys think that this segment is superfluous? All these questions I'm asking while boring mission objectives play? Do you think that this is like a funny bit, or is it cringe or something? I think it's pretty good. Also, if you want to know how good the Min Lighter is, I killed all the enemies in this section and had that much of the bar left over. It barely got recharged at all. Did you guys know that RK-5, you know, Rumpkampfjet Mark V, is the ship that dropped Zarpedon's power suit into this battle? This gun does blue damage, which means the blue health bar on Zarp goes down fast. However, blue is not red. I'll give you a second to soak in that information. All jokes aside, this fight was going very, very well. Zarp was locked in on Jack harder than I've locked in this entire run, so I was kinda able to just stand there and shoot at her. But she must have got sick of my Min Lighter tickles and shot at me with those stupid shock lasers she has. Those are blue, my health bar is blue. That's not good for me. And since the lighter is just so good it decimated all the mobs in the arena, I wasn't able to get a second wind. This happened twice. Thrice even. But then, I did the unthinkable, and for the first time in ever, I employed some sort of stratagem. All I had to do was hop around in a sort of elliptical curve type shape around the boss close enough so she spams her melee attack at me. This was shockingly effective and safe, and it drained her health way faster than shooting at her from a distance did since the orbs have more time to zap her. When she jumps away, you are in danger of her doing her lasery blasts, but we normally have health gate up and it's pretty fast to get back to her. The greatest thing is when the little minions spawn, you don't have to change the strategy at all. Just keep doing the bouncy, and if you go down, just keep jumping in circles, and if you enter fight for your life, you can get a second wind off a nearby enemy as long as the lighter hasn't killed them. Making the first phase of this fight 3 minutes 40 seconds. Very cool. Phase 2 of this fight brings Eternals, which are very tanky and not fun to deal with when you can't crit them. They're not as bad as Uber Muggers. That explosion shouldn't have hit me, I'll be real, like, come on, I was so far away. Eternals are very scary with their lasers and big health bars, but very less scary when they can't laser anymore, so my plan was to force them into Ascension so they're less of a problem. Which I'm gonna say worked out pretty well because I didn't die again. I only do mediocre damage to Zarp, so survival is very important, and lasers don't mesh well with that concept. So removing them from the equation made this fight a slightly stressful 3 minutes 19 seconds. And then I think the Destroyer's eye went on strike or something and blew up the laser. Jack was very mad about it, but maybe he should just pay his employees better, you know? I did a whole lot of running past a lot of dudes before RK5. Not a lot of mandatory combat between here and the final boss. This is where things start going off the rails a little bit. This is where I figured this challenge would start being a challenge. I knew RK5 spends most of his time outside the range of the Min Lighter, but I also knew that he does low laser strafes where I'd be able to hit him. But it would take a really long time. This is him doing one now, and isn't that strange? The lighter isn't doing any damage to him. After a little experimenting, I learned that the Min Lighter's orbs will not target RK5. As you can see, my bounces are damaging him, but the orbs won't hit him. So I figured I'd reset the fight and kill him with chucks. But that would be the same situation as before, where I can only hit him if he does one very specific attack. This is almost certainly more damage than I'd be able to do with the orbs, but it's still not a lot. I bounced between these two jump pads for 24 minutes before he finally did one other low strafe, and I missed it. This made me just a little angry. I'm sure this is possible, but I refuse to waste my time attempting it when I know the satisfaction of completing it won't be worth it. So, the Min Lighter easily one-shot RK5 with but a simple chuck and is therefore the best gun in the entire franchise. Do not question me, just let me have this. Moving on from that garbage, we get into new garbage with the Eternals, who I do really terrible damage to. There's not a snowball's chance in frick that I can kill them before they ascend. My game was all off at this point because of RK5 not going as I expected, and I was rushing to the end of the run. That's my excuse anyway. Since there's no mandatory combat in Tycho's Ribs, I ran past everything there, and the only mandatory combat in Elysir is right here, so here it is. I do damage to the enemies and they die. The blue bars go down faster than the red ones, but the red ones still go down. It took a long time and nothing interesting happened. I fought the boss for roughly 2 minutes and was in no danger, but found it satisfying that I was able to kill all the weaker enemies without having to focus on them. Then I fought the Sentinel, who was actually fun, like for real, even though the fight was 6 minutes 10 seconds. The biggest problem for Nisha fighting the Sentinel is that bullet reflect move, but as we talked about with Red Belly, no bullet to reflect. I am perfectly safe. I was afraid we'd have another RK5 situation in our hands with the big Sentinel, but that wasn't the case. Honestly, I wish it was. It's best practice to just shoot at the Sarahs here and let the orbs bounce around to hit the Sentinel, but it's better practice to not use the lighter on this boss at all in Big Phase. The shield goes down relatively quickly, but we don't have crits, so our damage against the red health bar, which isn't blue remember, is not good at all. I spent 11 minutes getting his first health bar almost all the way down before I died because the Sarah went out of range of my balls. Everything after Zarp just went completely off the rails. And the worst part? One-shotting doesn't work. Won't complete the objective. I switched to the crutch gear and gave myself infinite ammo. I already don't complete the challenge. It's DNF after the RK5 debacle. I knew this would be necessary because the second phase of Big Mode Sentinel is shock resistant. I wasn't gonna deal with that. I ended up propping a controller on my mouse and just leaving for a while. You know how long this dumb shit took? 46 minutes. And most of that was just the shock phase. So can you beat this game with only the minimum lighter? Technically yes, but I cannot. I don't have that kind of patience. After saying all of that, I feel the need to remind you that I really do love this gun. It's just impractical and, dare I say, foolish to expect one singular gun to carry you through the entire game easily. Which is what I would say if this was BL2, but it's not. This is TPS, where I get to blame the fact that I was using a bad build. And that's why I've returned here, to show you again that this gun is really nice with a decent-ish build around it, and it's a lot of fun to mess around with once you get your fire rate built up. The damage without kill skills remains basically the same, but the fire rate builds up higher and faster, and the damage after getting kill skills is really night and day. Remember those uber muggers that would constantly give me a hard time? This is them now. It really was the build that made most of this game hard. RK5 and Sentinel would have played out the same though. Well, that's everything. This run was about 7.5 hours long, and my final death tally turned out to be 27-ish. And I was unable to beat the game without the minimum later, so the points don't matter this run. I don't know how I feel about the points thing. I think it's a fun idea, but you should let me know what you think of it down in the comments. While you're at it, leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Okay, bye.